My name is Chaney, author of Autumn Crow, and welcome back to Library Macabre. Today I have part 2 of my horror middle grade bookshelf tour. Not too long ago I posted part 1 of my bookshelf tour, so I'll put the link up there so you can go and check it out. You don't have to go watch that one first though, just stay here with me. We're gonna look at some books together. So I went over the first few shelves of my middle grade horror shelf. So we're gonna continue on with this shelf right here. First off, I have another little Oogie Boogie Man. This is a bookmark from A Stranger Dream. Definitely recommend checking out that store on Etsy because they are awesome. She makes some really cool horror bookmarks. I also have this right here, which I'm gonna turn it on and showcase it for you.
I see everything, even what you're thinking.
This is motion activated, so I do leave it off because there have been times where I turned it on to show somebody and I forgot that it was on. And then when I was alone, I walked by it and it told me it saw me. And it made me jump because I wasn't expecting this thing to come to life. I also have a couple little books sitting here in front. So here's a tiny little Scooby-Doo book called Scooby-Doo and the Haunted Castle. And I have the Little Giant Book of True Ghost Stories. I've had this since I was a kid. I got this from the Scholastic Book Orders. And I have some middle grade hardcover books here, but I'm gonna start with these smaller books over here. These are all like scary story books. So we have a book called Scary Stories. Pretty classic looking. This has some really nice like color illustrations inside. This one is called Will Eisner's Spirit Casebook of True Haunted Houses and Ghosts. And this one's really cool. It also has some nice illustrations inside. Love that right there. That's cool. Chilling Ghost Stories. This one's by Bernard J. Herwood. Great ghost stories. Midnight Fright, a collection of ghost stories. That one has a terrifying cover. Strange Stories of the Supernatural. Haunted House Stories and more Haunted House Stories. And then I have all 3 books in the Scariest Stories You've Ever Heard series. So we have the first book, part 2, and part 3. Here we have a first edition, first printing of Tales for the Midnight Hour by J.B. Stamper. This one's a classic. I read this one when I was a kid. Of course, my edition of the book that I read when I was young was this one right here. This is like the 90s version. It might have been from the 80s, but I really like having both editions. This is the first one. This is the original cover. I also have more Tales for the Midnight Hour. And by Will Osborne, we have 13 Ghosts, Strange but True Stories. Okay, so next up we have Diary of a Monster's Son. This is by Ellen Conford. It's Conford, and this is from the 90s. I've never actually read this. I got this from a library book sale years ago, and I just never got around to actually reading it. This one's from 1999. This one is called Death and Douglas by J.W. Oker, who's one of my favorite authors. By Reed Scott Wenham, I think. This is called The Pricker Boy. By James Crowley, we have Monsterland. Very cool cover. The Most Frightening Story Ever Told by Philip Carr. This was pretty good. It's about this kid who finds this spooky bookstore and it turns into like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory kind of thing. It's pretty fun. The Last Gargoyle by Paul Durham. And this one looks really cute. This is called Rules for Ghosting. That cute artwork. Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. I think most people have probably read this one. I thought it was okay. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but it was decent. By Tom Becker, we have Dark Side. And this book looks really cool. This one has some really nice artwork on the inside of the book. And then the second book, which is called Dark Side Lifeblood, looks even cooler. Just look at all of that. And then you take off the dust jacket. Ooh. Look at all that spookiness. Love it. City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. Another one that was okay for me. The Phantom Isles by Stephen Alter. And then we also have the first 2 books in the Nightmares trilogy by Jason Segel. Yes, that Jason Segel. And Kirsten Miller. So I've not read these. I would like to read these at some point. I kind of actually forgot I even had these. can't stand to have my books out. Moving down to the next shelf, we have some more like middle grade hardcover books. First off, I have this little, it's a horror box, and it used to, if you tapped it, it would shake and there would be screaming inside, like somebody was stuck inside trying to get out. It's pretty cool. It doesn't work anymore, but yeah, I just thought it's something creepy to sit on my shelves. I have another little bookmark here from A Stranger Dream, and this really cute little candle holder. It has some witches on it and a castle. I believe this is from Yankee. First we have The Swallow, a ghost story by Karis Cotter. Beautiful cover art. Next is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This book is one of my favorites. Broke my heart, shattered my soul. It's so sad, so sad. The movie is also really great if you've not seen it, but caution, it's very sad. I wouldn't say this is horror. It's a little spooky, but it's not horror. It's about this this kid whose mom is dying of cancer, and basically he summons this monster by accident, and this monster has come to basically help him confront his truth and to help him come to terms with the fact that his mom is dying. Next up is a book that I picked up fairly recently. This one's called Night Books by J.A. White. This is about to be turned into a movie. As soon as I heard about the movie, I decided to buy the book, so I'd like to read this soon. By Chris Grabenstein, we have The Crossroads. Killer Pizza by Greg Taylor. By Aaron Starmer, we have The Riverman, which doesn't look like it's a scary book, but apparently this one's pretty creepy. It's another one that I've not read yet. The Haunting of Swain's Fancy. Ghost at the Window by Margaret McAllister. By Simon P. Clark. Tell the Story to Its End. All right, I've been really excited to talk about these. So next up we have some books by Paul Zindel. This one's called Rats. And this is actually a series of books. I only have 2 of them, but I've read the other ones. I got them from the library when I was a kid. There's also Wreath of Death, which mine came without a dust jacket. Thank you very much, Thrift Books. These books are freaking amazing. So these are middle grade books released by Disney Hyperion in the 90s. And they are brutal. They are bloody and full of guts and just people being devoured by rats. And all of the other books in the series are also just so gory. And I can't believe Disney Hyperion actually published these and that they actually got away with it because they're brutal. Like this one here, I'm just gonna like read you the opening of Rats. So we have a man named Leroy who is working at the dump, and a bunch of rats start swarming around him and eating him from the inside out. "No!" Leroy cried, trying to crawl the distance to the bulldozer. There was a flurry at his groin, and he doubled over like a fetus as rats with large front teeth began to gnaw through his t-shirt and into the folds of his stomach. Another mob of rats rushed Leroy, and his body began to convulse. His whole being shook violently, desperately trying to throw off the feeding rats. The wounds of his abdomen were larger now, bloodier, gashes 2 and 3 inches wide. Several smaller, muscular rats scooted in to wiggle their heads into his wounds. The rats crawled under his skin, their sharp, relentless teeth chewing through the layers of stomach fat toward the moist, curling warmth of his intestines. Leroy was on his side, his legs flailing, striking out against the rusted ice chest that lay on a ruptured mattress. He could feel the rodents inside of him now, moving, squirming. At last a wail bubbled up through his frothing lips, a treble scream of pain and shock and amazement. Air and lymph gushed from Leroy's mouth, and his eyes froze open and suddenly glazed. There was a final reflex, a gentle quivering of his body, while his steaming entrails spilled out like snakes of chalk into the morning air. Yeah, that's aimed at 10-year-olds, guys. This one's actually a signed first edition copy. Next we have Mothman's Curse, The Cabinet of Curiosities, 36 tales brief and sinister. The Light, which is book 1 in the Morpheus Road series by DJ McHale. The Peculiar Night of the Blue Heart by Lauren DeStefano. This was a very interesting ghost story slash possession story, actually. The Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste. One of my favorites from when I was a kid. The Mysterious Matter of I Am Fine. This is by Diane Stanley. This one's really fun. It's about these kids who are obsessed with this author named I Am Fine, who writes I think it's Shivers books. I believe the series is called Shivers. So basically it's Goosebumps, and I Am Fine is supposed to be R.L. Stine. And all of the kids who read these books start experiencing what's actually happening inside the books. It's really crazy and fun. These two kids decide to go on an adventure to try to find the real I Am Fine, and to see if it's an actual real person or if maybe they're evil in some way. It's fun, it's really cute. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a Goosebumps fan. I think you'll really get a kick out of this. Next is Hoodoo by Ronald L. Smith, another really great book. I'm trying not to review these books, guys, because this isn't a review video, but this is fantastic. Who Stole Halloween? The Witch Doll by Helen Morgan. Constable and Dupe. This one's by Gareth P. Jones. Very pretty cover. Unfortunately, it's a library copy, so it's got library stickers on it. By Peg Carrot, we have Terror at the Zoo. This is a first edition hardcover, signed by the author. And the sequel, Danger at the Fair. And then I also have two books in the, what's this called? Tales from Lovecraft Middle School series. So there's book 1, Professor Gargoyle. And book 2, The Slither Sisters. I love these covers, they're really cute. This is from Quirk Books. Okay, so now we are moving down to the last couple shelves on the bottom. This is probably the most awkward angle I have ever filmed at. I have no idea if these books are even going to be in frame. I'm going to do my best, okay? Can't really see the screen, so it's going to be a little difficult, but we'll work on it. So here we have Winifred Sanderson, of course, from Hocus Pocus. This is my Funko Pop figure. I have quite a few Funkos. I'm not so much into Funkos anymore just because they take up a lot of space, and it's kind of like once you start buying them, you can't stop. So I've been trying to get away from buying them and just keep the ones that I really, really like. So I really like her. She's awesome. Next we have the Hocus Pocus bookmark from A Stranger Dream. The Wickling by Stephen Arntson, or Arntson. This is a really creepy looking book. So it's got some interesting illustrations and stuff inside. We also have Fearsome Creatures of the Lumber Woods, 20 Chilling Tales from the Wilderness. The Monstrous Memoirs of a Mighty McFearless. Okay, so next we have the Last Apprentice series by Joseph Delaney. This is a series I have been wanting to read for the longest time. I read the first book a few years ago and loved it. Wanted to continue on with the series, did not get a chance to, so now I want to go back and reread the first book and then try the series again. But I loved the first book. This was fantastic. Very, very creepy stuff. Hard to believe this is for middle grade audience. It's just very eerie, and the illustrations in this are creepy. The illustrations get creepier and creepier as the books go on, but yeah, very solid book. I also have the Spooks Bestiary, which is a guide to all of the creatures that show up in the Last Apprentice series. And here is book 2 in the series, Curse of the Bane. Book 4, Attack of the Fiend. Of course, I still have to get book 3. Book 5, Wrath of the Blood Eye. Book 6, Clash of the Demons. Book 7, Rise of the Huntress. And then we're skipping all the way to book 11. Here we have Slither. I still need to get the books in between this and book 7. And then there's also a book 12, which I don't own yet. We also have The Last Apprentice, The Spook's Tale and Other Horrors, A Coven of Witches. And then here is the spin-off series. I think there's only 2 books in this series, and it's, I guess, what happens after this series. It's like a continuation. So this is actually more of like a YA version, where these are a little more on the middle grade side. And then by Joseph Delaney, we have The Ghost Prison, which is super creepy. By Jonathan Frasian, I think, we have The Last Martin. Hopefully there's not a glare. The Haunting of Henry Davis by Catherine Siebel. Spirit Hunters by Ellen O. Behind the Bookcase by Mark Steensland. If you're into indie horror, you probably know of Mark Steensland's horror books. The Face in the Mirror by Stephanie S. Tolan. The House on Hound Hill by Maggie Prince. And moving down to this shelf, we have Mr. Moonbeam and the Halloween Crystal by Ryan Cowan. Juniper Berry, A Tale of Terror and Temptation by M.P. Kozlowski, I'm sorry. And this is actually signed by the author. These are really cute books. I love these. So here we have The Witchy Broom and The Witch's Spell by Ida Delage. And these just have really cute vintage Halloween illustrations on the inside. Another one of those weekly reader books. This one's called The Ghost of Windy Hill, The Haunted Cove. The Halloween Spectacle by Leslie Harshman. This was a really cute little book. The Drowned by Elizabeth Levy. Here are some classics. We have the Bunnicula collection, 3 hair-raising tales in 1 volume. Has Bunnicula, Holiday Inn, and Bunnicula Strikes Again. Bunnicula is one of my favorite books. Love it. I love the whole series. Next we have The Celery Stalks at Midnight, another book in the Bunnicula series. Return to Holiday Inn. And then here are a couple books in the Tales from the House of Bunnicula. Next we have some Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark tribute books. So we have Scary Stories to Tell If You Dare and the second book. And we also have Bedtime Horrors for Adults and Young Adults, Volume 1. I don't know if there was a Volume 2 of this. I hope they end up bringing it back for Volume 2 if they haven't already, because this was a really cool anthology. Moving down to the next shelf. This is the one at the very bottom. So we have this little art print. Can't remember what this is from, honestly. And then we have my Nosferatu Funko Pop. Next is A Guide to the Other Side by Robert Timfield. And this is the sequel, Baylor's Guide to Dreadful Dreams. Here are all of my John Belair's books. So we have The House with a Clock in Its Walls, classic book. A Figure in the Shadows, The Sign of the Sinister Sorcerer. The Best of John Belair's 2, The Johnny Dixon Mysteries, The Wrath of the Grinning Ghost. Now, something I've noticed as soon as I pulled off this book is that when I open it up, you can see it's got this cloth binding and it is suffering from mold. I don't know if you could see that on camera. Always check books that have cloth bindings because they could have mold on them. Sometimes it happens. You just have to kind of keep an eye on cloth books because they mold very easily. Like I have a dehumidifier, but it doesn't always do the trick. Next is The Chessmen of Doom by John Belair's, The Eyes of the Killer Robot, McMummy by Betsy Byers, The Ghost in the Noonday Sun. All right, next are all of my Bruce Coville books. I love Bruce Coville. So here we have The Book of Spine Tinglers, Tales to Make You Shiver. I love that cover. Book of Nightmares 2. Still have to get the first one. Book of Aliens 2. Book of Ghosts. Book of Ghosts 2. Book of Magic. And Book of Magic 2. Also by Bruce Coville, we have an old library copy of The Ghost in the Big Brass Bed, The Ghost in the Third Row, and I also have a copy of The Monster's Ring, which is one of my favorite Bruce Coville books. I just got that from a friend actually, but it's over in my book haul pile. Ghost a la Mode by Judy Miller. This cover freaks me out. That ghost right there is terrifying, and so is this creepy little kid. Return to Halloween Town, The Witch's Amulet, The Ghostly Trio. This is an old Scholastic book. Time Windows by Catherine Reese. Scared Stiff, Scared to Death. And here's the second edition of Scared to Death, Under the Mummy's Spell. The Haunting of Third Grade. I remember reading this in 3rd grade. By the same author, we have The Ghost on the Hill. A Cry in the Night by Carol Ellis, who is an author of many point horror books. Next we have book 2 in the My Sister the Ghost series. This one's called Escape from Ghostland. And book 4, Babysitter Beware. Next I have 8 books in the Ghost Twins series. So this one's called The Mystery at Kickingbird Lake, The Mystery of One Wish Pond, Mystery on Walrus Mountain, The Missing Moose Mystery, Mystery of the Disappearing Dogs, The Haunted Campground Mystery, The Mystery at Hanover School, and book 8, The Mystery of the Haunted Castle. Next we have The Ghost That Came Alive by Vic Crumb, and The Secret of Laurel Oaks by Lois Ruby. Boo! Let's look at that top shelf up there. I'm gonna get to these shelves in the next part, but for this one, we're just gonna stick with this last shelf up here, and then I'll come back to the rest of this madness later. So first, we have the Fun Facts horror file, and I've showed this off in a couple of videos before, and this is pretty cool. So Fun Facts was like a series from back in the 90s. It was basically like just little factorials, little notebooks and things, and then they also had their own horror series. So they had a horror book series, much like Goosebumps and Point Horror, and then this was something that came along with it. So I don't know, that whole thing, Fun Facts, was kind of a mystery to me. I never actually read these when I was a kid. I didn't even know they existed. But this is pretty cool. I would have really liked to have this as a kid. We also have a couple of books here in the front. So the first one is a book from the So Weird series, which was a series on Disney Channel in the 90s. This is book 4 in the book series called Strangeling. Universal Classic Monsters presents The Wolfman. So this is just basically a children's novelization of The Wolfman. The Mystery in Dracula's Castle. This is a Walt Disney movie from the 70s, I think. Might have been the 60s, actually. Yeah, 1973. And this is the little novelization about the movie. I also have a few books from the Outer Limits series by John Peel. So this one here is book number 3. It's called The Time Shifter. Book 4, The Lost. Book 7, The Vanishing, Creepy Clown. And book 9, Beware the Metal Children. I also have a Wonderful World of Walt Disney book. This one's called Frankenstein and the Whiz Kid. And 3 books from the Erie, Indiana book series. Erie, Indiana was one of my favorite shows back in the day. And I only have 3 of the books, unfortunately. So here we have the first one called Return to Foreverwhere, which if you've seen the show, you would probably know what Foreverwhere is. It's so good, guys. If you've not watched Erie, Indiana, go look it up. It's a lot of fun. Number 3, The Erie Triangle. And number 12, They Say. Next we have this guy here. It's just a Halloween decoration that I've decided to keep around year round. His eyes usually glow red, but I think the batteries are missing. Classic. Coraline by Neil Gaiman, one of my favorite books. The Graveyard Book, also scared the crap out of me. The Graveyard Book, also by Neil Gaiman, another fantastic read. And another really good book, Fright Watch. This is book 1 in the series called The Stitchers by Lauren Lawrence. So good. All right, so first off, I have a few books by Mary Downing Hahn. This one's called Took, a Ghost Story. Closed for the season, The Girl in the Locked Room. The Old Willis Place, and classic, my personal favorite, Wait Till Helen Comes, with that old school cover. Here's another weekly reader book. This one's called The Screaming Grave. And now we're getting into my Betty Wren Wright books. I loved Betty Wren Wright. She's a lot like Mary Downing Hahn. She wrote ghost stories for kids. So we have Ghosts Beneath Our Feet, which is another one of those weekly reader books. This is part of the Especially for Girls series. Next up is The Midnight Mystery and The Phantom of Five Chimneys, both by Betty Wren Wright. I used to have a whole bunch more of her books, and I don't know where they are. The Dollhouse Murders, that was always my favorite one of hers. That one was really good. Also A Ghost in the Family. I remember that one really creeping me out when I was a kid. Here is a book by William Sleater. This is called Among the Dolls. The House on Hackman's Hill by Joan Lowry Nixon. The font on this reminds me of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Next are a few books by K.R. Alexander. So we have The Collector, Bury Me, Scare Me, and The Fear Zone. Ooh, look at the light catching the eye. That's creepy. By Phyllis Reynolds Naylor, who wrote Shiloh, we have The Witch's Eye, Breathe, a ghost story by Cliff McNish. It's a fun name to say. The Presence by Eve Bunting. Eve Bunting's a great author. Last of the Spirits by Chris Priestley. Another weekly reader book. I'd love to read this come October. This is called On All Hallows Eve, and it's just got this gorgeous wraparound artwork. Another weekly reader, The Horrible Swamp Monster. Pretty cool artwork. 2 books in the Gustav Gloom series. So here we have Gustav Gloom and the People Taker, and The Nightmare Vaults. The Call by I don't know how to pronounce that author's name. I think this is actually young adult, if I remember correctly. Next is Frenzy by Robert Lettrick. This is also published by Disney Hyperion, and I hear that this is also a creature attack book where a bunch of rabid animals start attacking a summer camp for boys, and apparently this is really gory and violent. I just picked this up a couple months ago, so I will definitely give this a read. But yeah, I'm very surprised that Disney has published so many gory books. Chupacabra by Roland Smith. This is actually a different Roland Smith from Hoodoo, which I showed you a little bit ago. Next are two books in the Vampire Plague series. So we have London 1850 and Paris 1850. How to Disappear Completely and Never Be Found. Funny story, I remember when I was a kid, I got this from a garage sale and the book was priced $3. I walk up with my little $3, little kid Cameron, and I hand the old lady my $3, and there was a girl sitting next to her. She was probably like 14, 15 years old. And the grandma turns to the girl and goes, "Did you really put $3 on that?" And the girl just goes, "Eh." She's like, "No." And she hands me back $2 and she said, "$1's fine." And the girl got so mad at her grandma and just stormed off to the house. She was so sad that she lost $2 off of this book. I just thought it was really funny and I never forgot about it. Here we have Skeleton Man and The Dark Pond, both by the same author. This is book 2 in the High Tech Howard series. This one's called The Halloween Hex. You could probably imagine why I picked up this book. It's Halloween. Grave Diggers, Mountain of Bones. This is by Christopher Rovitin, I think. Croviton? I think it's Rovitin. I think the K is silent. The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spear. Very, very good book. I actually remember hearing about this for the first time on Zoom, that PBS show I used to watch when I was a kid. The kid on the show talked about it and I immediately had to go find a copy. I think I wound up finding it at a Goodwill store. Secrets of Dripping Fang, book 1, The Aunts. I remember this one being really cute, but I never read the other books. I have to go find those sometime. But I remember this being a really fun read. These look awesome. I haven't read these yet, but I need to get to these. These look cool. So here we have The Shadowing series by Adam Slater. So this one is the first book. It's called Hunted. And there is the second book called Skinned. And there was going to be a third book, I believe. Yeah, here it is. The third book was going to be called Doomed. I don't think it was ever published. The Bone Collector by Justin Richards. The Parliament of Blood by Justin Richards. Great title. Paranorman, one of my favorite Halloween movies. I watch it every year, and this is the little novelization about the movie. And this is really cute. Like, the book itself is very well designed. And I have it sitting right next to my little novelization of Frankenweenie. This is really cute. It's got like the black edges all the way around, and lots of illustrations on the inside, and the pages are even black on the inside. It's just really cool. All right, there you have it, creeps. That is part 2 of my middle grade horror bookshelf tour, and I'm going to be back pretty soon. I'm not sure when, but as soon as I can, to do part 3, where I'm going to go over all of my Goosebumps knockoffs from the 90s. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please don't forget to give me a like down below, as well as leave me a comment. If you don't have anything to say, just say, "Hey, creep," that works too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Library Macabre. Later, creeps.